freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 308 of Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are brought to you by azfirearms.com, your nationwide hometown gun shop. I am one of your hosts, Cheryl Todd.
And I'm the other guy, Dan Todd. We have a great show today. Our theme is the Constitution still our North Star? And our guest is Michael Peroutka. Michael is a Maryland lawyer, the founder of the Institute of the Constitution. And Michael once held a position in the United States Department of Health and Human Services and was the Constitution Party candidate for president in 2004. He is also the co-host of the American View radio program.
Absolutely. Welcome back to the show, Michael.
Well, Cheryl and Dan, it's an honor to be with you. Thank you for your hospitality. It's great to be back on Gun Freedom Radio.
Awesome.
Oh, this is tremendous. You know, your name has been bubbling up to my mind so often in the past several months because it just seems like every single day there is something else that flies in the face of what our founders fought, bled, starved, and died to secure for us in our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. And I just feel like our values as a nation, our goals, and our direction has veered so far off of the roadmap. And I just do wonder, as I named the theme of the show, is the Constitution still our North Star?
Well, yes, it is, but we've got blinders on and we can't see it. Is really the trouble? I guess you might say we are living, Cheryl and Dan, in an age of lawlessness, and I think what I've come to the conclusion is that this is not the result of people making mistakes or being negligent, et cetera, et cetera. This is an intended thing. This is a predetermined thing. This is an attack on America and on American culture and on the Constitution. Since the beginning of our experiment in liberty back with our founders, there have been enemies of that, and they have used various methods and methodologies to try to undermine a system of government that is based on the idea that it's based on a biblical worldview, which means that man is a flawed creature, but God has given us rights. And it's the job of civil government to protect and defend those rights. So we have veered away from that. But is the Constitution still the North Star? Yes, because I sometimes attend meetings with officials, and when you bring up the Constitution, they seem to sometimes kind of laugh it off and go, "Oh, the Constitution. Well, good luck with that." Well, what are you using for a yardstick then? I mean, if you're going to throw that away, if you're going to jettison that, then you really have nothing to stand on to say that you have any rights or have any ability to enforce them, because the Constitution is the basis of the bargain, if you will. It is the deal. It's the compact. It's the contract that we have, that the people have with civil government. And it's as you of course know, it's a document that grants and entrusts enumerated and limited powers to certain people. And when they have jettisoned those and violated those with just terrible violence, it's the duty of the people to rise up against and enforce that deal. Yes, it's the North Star, but we better learn to navigate it and negotiate it again.
Well, unfortunately, our government and our schools are teaching the kids to look down and not look up at our North Star and follow it. They're not teaching the Constitution in schools anymore.
Well, they, if you go back to the real reason why, people think that schools are a failure, and it's commonly thought that schools are a terrible, terrible failure. But if you read the works and the writings of people like Horace Mann and Robert Owen and his son Robert Dale Owen in the next generation, and men like Albert Combe, those people that actually developed and lobbied for and instituted the government school system in the 1850s and 60s, et cetera. Their objective was to do exactly what they have done. Government schools are extremely effective and successful in what they tried to do, because their goal was to de-Christianize America and to separate American children from the values and principles that their parents held dear. That was the fun. People, if you think that they were about writing arithmetic or reading or whatever, they were not. They were not. And please don't take my word for that, Cheryl, Dan, and your audience. Please read the words of those people and the works of those people who founded those schools. They have been a tremendous success they've been change agents to undermine American values, and they're still going at it so very, very strongly. I prayed for a long time, along with others, that the government schools would be closed, and I never thought it would happen in my lifetime. But a great silver lining of this ridiculous pandemic fraud is that the government schools closed. Yeah. Praise God. The government schools closed, and these movements around here, around my neighborhood, and yours, of course, as well, to reopen them are, I mean, I just want to scream. They're nonsense. No, leave them closed. That's the one silver lining in this mess.
Well, I find myself right in that tension between the two, because during the time that they were closed, I was homeschooling my 6-year-old granddaughter quite a bit, and I have to use that in the loosest terms because I'm not equipped for that. Now, I could become equipped for that, right? And then when they were trying to do that online schooling, there was no independent learning online. There was no learning. There was no schooling happening. That was ridiculous for a 6-year-old. But I totally understand. I would find myself arguing in my own mind exactly what you said. Why would I be fighting to put her back in this system that I think is polluting her mind?
There was a book written by a friend that I knew, and his name's going to come to mind in a minute. Tom Moore, I think it was. He wrote a book called Let My Children Go. And basically his theme was take your children out of Pharaoh's schools. Pharaoh is raising your children to hate your God and your God's ordained system of government and the principles under which you would claim that you have rights and the right to defend them. That's what these schools are doing. And I'm so glad, Cheryl, you said that, because and I'm not trying to chastise you. Please understand this. But when you
chastise away.
But when you say I'm not equipped, oh yes, you are. You are more equipped because Proverbs 1:7 says the beginning of knowledge, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, the beginning of knowledge. God has not given government schools or the civil government the authority and the duty and the power and the talent to raise children to love, in the fear and admonition of the Lord. He gives that to parents. You have more in this little part of your little finger of talent and ability and equipment to do that job than any person from a government school. I used to have a pastor that, excuse me for beating this to death, but I used to have a pastor who used to say, Michael, there's no right way to do a wrong thing. There's no right way to do a wrong thing. There is no right way for government to teach your children. That's a job for moms and dad. Now, I'm a homeschool dad as well, and we use co-ops, and we use there obviously there's situations that you might not be an expert in teaching science or math or something, but there are people right next door, to across the street and down the road, that know how to do that. But under your supervision, guidance, and tutelage. That's the key, not under the tutelage of the state.
I
Well, what
appreciate
I've
that.
seen, I've seen Cheryl lose a little bit of hair, but I have talked to other parents and, adult that have teenagers, and they're finding out with the kids being at home that the schools are not only not teaching the good stuff that needs to be taught, but they're teaching bad things. And the parents are going, They taught you what?" And now the parents are interacting with the children more than they had in the past.
Right.
And the
You know,
school boards. I mean, one of the topics I wanted to dive into with you is this whole critical race theory issue that has erupted across the nation. And the idea behind that, as I understand it, is that they're trying to reframe, not revisionist history necessarily, but a reframing of U.S. and even world history for our children and our children's children. And it's perplexing to me that they're teaching racism. They're trying to teach our children to see each other through this lens of race, especially at a time when my generation, I graduated high school in 1984. So I was of the "we are the world,"
So
and
young.
in the well, bless your heart, and the ebony and ivory, and so our children, the millennials, I think were equipped and actually at living out inclusiveness and color blindness and just enjoying other human beings as human beings more so than any other time or place in world history. And if I'm correct in that, how on earth are they spoon feeding us like we're just little hungry baby birds, just gobbling up this racist garbage of this critical race theory? Like what is happening, Michael?
Thank you. To Dan's point first, this is not, of course, education at all. This is an indoctrination into a Marxist idea. Think of the words critical race theory. What they're teaching us is to be critical, to criticize other races. This is the typical Marxist divide and conquer strategy. This is a class struggle. They're teaching us to hate each other and to line up against each other, in the same way that they're teaching critical race theory for so they want blacks against whites or against whatever other color, greens against reds and blues and yellows or whatever. They're doing the same thing with respect to vaccinated and unvaccinated. They're trying to separate us into vaccinated. They're trying to divide us into groups where we fight and struggle with each other while that class or race struggle is going on. That's they're doing their evil things. They're controlling us all with that idea. So critical race theory is a Marxist idea. And again, to Dan's point, when parents see this happening, this is this is a wake-up call. If you didn't get a wake-up call any other way, this should be a wake-up call to you. Don't send your children back to Pharaoh's schools or Hitler's schools or whatever you want to call them. Dividing people against themselves is a Marxist strategy, which separates us. In my pastor this week, Pastor David Whitney, gave a sermon about Ruth and she and Boaz, who is, of course, Ruth came back, left her own people and her country, her mother and her father, to follow her mother-in-law Naomi back to her people. And so she was a stranger when she was gleaning from the field. I don't mean to get too far into this, but when she was gleaning from the field, Boaz, who was not like her at all, he wasn't from her race, he wasn't from her culture, but he recognized her industry and her care and her concern for her mother-in-law. She recognized his authority. And even though they were from different races and different creeds, if you will, and actually had been brought up worshiping different gods, they worked together. They came together. This is exactly this is the biblical way to treat people and to bring people to the Lord. But what this Marxist thing is exactly the opposite of that. It's divide and conquer. The critical race theory is a dangerous thing to have children learn. It's a dangerous thing, for me, I'm a little older than you are, but it seems so ridiculous to me. People from my generation would, I would think, would scoff at it, but people who are coming up today, as you say, like the little birds, are regrettably are indoctrinated in it.
Well, they're teaching it in the news, they're teaching it in schools, they're teaching it, the government's sending the messages, and it's just the way it is. You know, if you hear it so often, it becomes truth.
Well, and there are so many families that are blended in so many ways, and we have, ways to communicate with people across the globe in ways that we never would have, even when I was in high school in the 80s. And so we have bridged so many of these gaps. We have overcome our biases and a lot of our tribalisms. It's just shocking to me that they're able to float this stuff right now and have gotten any traction at all. But
Well, Cheryl, isn't that what you just said? Isn't that very much like what Tim Scott said in his response to the speech that
yes.
Biden gave, that ridiculous diatribe? But Tim Scott was saying this is not a racist country. This is a country of opportunity, and to see it that other way is just a dark and desperate and deceived way to view things.
Isn't that the case? And all the people at the exact same moment that we're having such a crisis at our borders, people desperate to come to this nation, seeking, risking life and limb to come to this nation. Clearly, they haven't gotten the memo that we are rife with racism. So
Yeah,
That's
weird,
just
huh?
one of many contradictions, is it not?
it's
Yeah.
so much so. It's craziness. Another counterintuitive thing that is happening in all of these sweeping Second Amendment infringements coming out of the Biden-Harris administration with their initial actions, right, which tells you this is just the start of what they want. But in the past 12 months, here's one of those counterintuitive these contradictions. 8 to 10 million people have become brand new firearms owners. And now the administration is trying to vilify gun owners and the tools themselves. Um, it's just mind-boggling. Like, how does the administration think they're going to get any traction with this? And if they do, it's got to be out of our ignorance, the voters' ignorance, the citizens' ignorance, that we so desperately need your Institute on the Constitution so that we can re-educate ourselves on what our founding documents are even about.
Thank you.
You're
Well,
welcome.
Cheryl and Dan, we have to be, you've said a mouthful there. We have to be
Did.
worthy of liberty. And to be worthy of liberty, we have to understand its principles, and we have to understand, many people, there's been such violence by these governors done to not only the United States Constitution, but to their state constitutions. Just as an example, in my state of Maryland, there's Article 44 of our Declaration of Rights, which says that the Constitution of the United States and of this state apply as well in time of war as in time of peace, and no deviation therefrom or violation thereof under the plea of necessity or any other plea. Under the plea of necessity or any other plea is valid. Nothing could be more on point. I mean, so the pandemic is not over the Constitution as they've led us to believe. The Constitution is over the pandemic. It's in difficult times like this when we absolutely need to follow the law, not to jettison the law. So the same thing is true with respect to the Second Amendment. These people what'd you say, 8 to 10 million people that bought guns,
Yes.
new gun owners? Well, that's because they innately they have some sense, and they're doing something that makes sense to them because they realize that look, if the government wants to control us and enslave us, they do it. They need to first of all get rid of the idea of God because God is a different entity to follow than them. They think they're God, so they have to demean and get rid of God. They have to get rid of guns because guns are a practical way, and obviously a practical way that the citizenry can fight back. So they have to get rid of the way that you would think that you have liberty, and then the means to effectuate your liberty. They want to take both of those two things away. So it actually makes sense that that's what they would do. They don't care about making sense, by the way. I don't think that matters to them. And as you said earlier, one of you said that if you tell this lie long enough and big enough, then people start to believe it. Well, it's our job, I think, also to turn that off, to turn off the television. Why do people go get these vaccines? Experimental gene therapy. It's not even a vaccine. But why do people go get them? Basically because the television told them to.
But Michael, the Constitution was written a long time ago, and they didn't know about COVID at the time.
Yeah,
But they knew about evil people at the time. They knew about people who sought to control and enslave other people. They knew all about that, and that hasn't changed one whit.
Right.
Absolutely. And they knew about disease.
Right.
They knew
I'm just saying that because they say that about guns.
Absolutely.
They say that they didn't have semi-automatic and full automatic guns back in Mike,
they did.
Before the show, we were talking about a new program that you had, and it was called the Freedom Toolkit.
Thank you.
Thank
you. What we've been working, and Institute on the Constitution, first of all, our mission is to get people to think like Americans, to think like Americans again, to jettison this false idea. And one of the things we come up with recently, we're working on, and it'll be on our website, The American View, very soon, is a citizens freedom kit, basically, which will have suggested language that you can go to your county council, your town council, suggested scripts for you to make the case to them that they need to interpose on behalf of the people against state or federal government that's violating the Constitution. There's also scripts for like postcard size things that you can hand to a business owner or a restaurant owner that explains what the fraud of face mask laws. There is no such thing as there's no such thing as a face mask law. Governors don't make law. Executives don't make law. Courts don't make law. Laws are made by legislatures, and nowhere in the country is there a law that requires you to wear a face mask. It explains the idea of that it's a medical device and it's regulated in every state. So there's these practical parts of this information kit that you can use to speak to your local government, to speak to your sheriff, to speak to your law enforcement official. Almost everybody has a brother-in-law or a cousin or somebody in your church or somebody that's a cop or a law enforcement official. And there's a letter that's included in that packet that you can give to them that encourages them and explains to them why they need to stop listening to tyrants and obey their oath to the Constitution, and practically and palpably explains what they need to do. So thank you for bringing that up. That's something we're working on. It'll be on our website within a matter of days or a day or two. And that's theamericanview.com, or you can type in Institute on the Constitution or theamericanview.com, and that'll take you to our website. And in addition to all that, we have a Constitution course that's free, FREE. You can go online there. We also, all across the country, have classes in the Constitution that are held by, and there's a map actually on our website that shows you the classes that are forming and taking place near you. They're in every place, including Arizona, and they're all over the country. So we're also working on a project to develop courses of instruction for every state constitution, which is extremely important. Many people don't even realize they have a state constitution. So thank you for bringing that up. These are all materials and tools that will equip you to hold your elected representatives accountable and know how to speak and talk to them, and also to law enforcement.
That's a tough one, because half the politicians out there don't even know what the Constitution means or what it says, and they're making laws. We're voting for people to make laws that we have to follow.
Dan, it's a huge problem. In my state, there are 2 accredited law schools, University of Maryland, University of Baltimore. I went to one of them about 100 years ago. But when neither of those schools have a course of study in the Maryland Constitution, and yet everybody that graduates there, assuming that he passes the bar and becomes an attorney, they swear an oath to the Maryland Constitution. They've never studied it. They've never been required to read it.
How's that
And I
possible?
bet that's true in your state too. It's
sure.
true in many, many states.
How is that possible that you are to uphold the law and follow the law, and you don't even know what the law is?
Well, that shows you how deep and systemic the corruption is. I mean, law schools don't even teach you law. I didn't learn the law in law school. I don't think anybody learns the law in law school. You learn some process that gets you by, but the law is you learn a fake law or a pretended law that says that laws are made by courts and executives. No, they're made by, first of all, they're made by legislators, and they have to agree with the Constitution, which is the temporal standard, and they have to agree with God's law, the Word of God, the Ten Commandments, which is the eternal standard. And that was well understood by all of our founders, by Jefferson and Adams and Washington and et cetera. It's understood by nobody today. John Thomas in his hearings where they were going to confirm him, he actually offered the fact that he believed the Bible, but it wouldn't have any John Roberts, I'm sorry, it would not have any bearing on any of his decisions. Well, that's just an absolutely ridiculous thing to say. He just took the ultimate law book and threw it out the window. And actually he's acted just that way. So he's fulfilled that prediction of himself. So it's a huge problem, but that's why Institute on the Constitution, that's why we exist. And I encourage people to please go to our website, again, theamericanview.com, and start to learn the way it ought to be. You won't be able to enforce it unless you understand it.
Amen to that. And you can't, as a citizen, care or fight for something that you don't even know or feel any connection to. And so one last thing I wanted to talk to you about is we are going to be facing, if we aren't already, I believe we are already facing inflation issues because of all the money that is being printed simply because I guess there's still paper in their files, in their cabinets to print it on. But the degree of inflation is as yet unknown. But I have to believe it will come. If our sense of history is destroyed and our ability to protect ourselves, our Second Amendment, and our families is destroyed, and our money becomes worthless, I mean, I think you've given us some ideas already with the tools in your kit and in your website, but how do we get back to our North Star?
Well, let me say some hopeful things, okay? Because I'd like to end on a hopeful note here. The situation is as you described, and you're right, it's horrible. And it's horrible because the enemies of America are, quote unquote, in charge of America right now. People who hate America, hate what it stands for, are actually perpetrating an act of war against us now. The enslaving us with face masks, the destruction of our economy, the rampant inflation that's coming because of the fiat currency that we've been under and we continue to be under. All of these things are acts of war against our country. It is going to be up to the people. My mentor, Mr. Howard Phillips, used to say to me, Michael, the Constitution is not a self-enforcing document. It's not a self-enforcing document, though it's a wonderful document. It's an inspired document, but the words of the document are not going to leap off the page and enforce themselves. It takes champions. It takes people who understand it. First of all, who have read it, who have understand it, who understand the Christian principles, are committed to those principles, and committed to championing it and living it out. There are people all across the country today doing exactly that. There are school boards that are getting replaced right now because parents are going, we're not. Now, of course, from my earlier comments, I think what they ought to do is dissolve the school board, dissolve the schools, and put them all under the control of local and parents and local and parent run curriculum. But all over the country, there are people rising up and taking charge. That has to be, and as bad as it is, the television is designed and the media is designed to make you think it's hopeless. It's not hopeless. Whatever you can do, whatever you have at your fingertips and at your whatever sphere of influence you have, whether it's the school, the children that you can educate yourself, or that you join others to help educate, or whether it's to influence law enforcement people that you know, or whether it's to testify at your county council, et cetera. This is the great opportunity to flip this thing the other way. There are many, many more of us than there are of them. But we need to, again, my friend, my mentor, Howard Phillips, used to say, Michael, thou shalt know the rules. You need to know the rules. If you're going to engage in something, you got to know the rules. And we have to know our Constitution. We have to know what those rules are. We have to be able to understand the revolution that's happened in America. We have to be able to articulate that so that we can convince others to work with us to overcome it and restore. We're not revolutionary. They're revolutionary. We're restorative. We want to restore an order that is lost, just like our ancestors at Runnymede in 1215, just like our ancestors in America in 1608, in Jamestown in 1620, in Plymouth, just like our founders in 1776. We are seeing that an order has been destroyed, and we need to correct and restore that order. And that's what we're about. And that's what we're about at Institute on the Constitution.
Boy, that's wonderful. And thank you for that hopeful message. And I do think that, just like you said, there are silver linings in the idea that kids were home with their families for all those months during
Right.
this COVID mess. But, there's that analogy out there about the boiling. How do you boil a frog effectively? You just,
Right.
without him jumping out of the pot, you just turn up the heat slowly, slowly, slowly. Well, I think that this new administration, this Biden-Harris administration, and all this BLM stuff and all the rioting and burning of cities and all of these things happening at the same time, somebody cranked the heat up fast enough that it woke up a bunch of us
Yes.
frogs.
I've jumped out.
There are frogs
I've
jumping
jumped
out of the pots. There are frogs jumping out of the pot all over the place now. Amen. Praise God.
I don't get it, because with all the new election fraud and all this other stuff going on, how are we going to get our politicians to become people of the Constitution? How they
by running ourselves, maybe.
that's the only way,
right? And supporting people that we
Bingo.
believe, right? Am I on
Yes,
the right path?
yes. This is a frequent question we deal with. Once you learn what the rules are, you are able to articulate it, and you see what's happened, and you look around for somebody that you want to vote for. In many cases, there isn't anybody,
right?
and you got to go look in the mirror,
Mhm.
because it might just be you. It might just be you or somebody you know. We need to take this back. Yes.
And it shouldn't be hard to be a politician. All it should take is, the Constitution, you follow the Constitution, you say yes and you say no, and you don't,
Based
and that's
on
it.
representing
simple.
your constituency. But man,
You know,
it's a snake pit right now. It is a
Dan-
viper's den and
And
scary.
I served on my county council from 2014 to 2018. I wasn't elected again for some reasons you probably would understand. But I voted against every county budget because they were all unconstitutional. There were so many times when they tried to give us money that some FEMA or some government agency, federal or international agency, wanted to give us money, and I voted against accepting all of that money because all of that money comes with strings attached. The counties are bought off.
Yeah.
So we have to go back to the basics. We have to go back to go. We just have to go back to go and start over. And it's not such a hopeless thing. It's been done by our ancestors, by our forefathers, and we honor them and bless them for what they've done. We're just living. It's our turn. It's our turn to get the job done, and we need it looks hopeless. I remember was it Einstein that said, "For any idea which at first does not seem absurd, there is no hope." So
Well,
all great ideas seem hopeless in the beginning.
I
That's
thought
the
it was
truth.
hopeless too, but then I see what the other side is doing and how blatant and how stupid the way they're doing it, that even the not smart people are starting to see what's going on.
Yeah. Well,
You
and
Other
said
people,
that very delicately. That was very diplomatic where you said
I have
that.
to be super careful. My wife has a mute button over here, but it's true. I mean, come on. What kind of president and vice president could be getting away with what they're doing? I mean, I
It's a
don't know.
joke.
It
It's a
is a joke.
joke. The
It is.
lockdowns and all that, and the destruction of the economy is. I mean, it would be a joke, but it's not funny. It's destructive. And if this doesn't wake people up, then as we said at the beginning of the show, maybe we're not worthy of liberty.
Right.
If you if this doesn't wake you up, you're not worthy of liberty.
Well, I quit watching Saturday Night Live quite a few years ago because of how political they are. And what
Yeah.
did they do? They forced it in real life. Now we have Saturday Night Live every day on the news. And it's the way it is. It is. It's
I don't think you're too far off there, babe.
I can't
Uh,
top that one. I'm gonna use that one, Dan. Thank you.
okay. Use it.
That's great. All right. Well,
Live from the United States. It's
Oh,
Saturday Night Live with Biden.
yes, no doubt. All
That's
right. Well, as we start wrapping up, could you just tell folks one more time how they can benefit from the knowledge, the learning, the toolkit that you have devised with your organizations?
Sure. We call it the American view. There's an American view of law and government, Cheryl, that basically it's summarized very concisely and precisely in the Declaration of Independence. It basically says there is an almighty eternal God of the universe. He created us. Our rights come from him. And the purpose of civil government is to protect and secure those God-given rights. It's not to make sure you're wearing your helmet. It's not to make sure you're wearing your seatbelt. It's not to make sure you're eating your veggies. And it's certainly not to take care of your health. The purpose of civil government is to protect your liberty so you can protect your health.
Right.
Mhm.
So that's the American view. That American view is in all the documents of our founding, but it's not operative today. It's not generally operative today. It's our job at Institute in the Constitution to educate people so that they can understand what that American view is, how we've discarded it and veered away from it, and how we can return to it. That's what we need to do, but we need to understand it. We spend a couple of lessons just before we even get to the text of the Constitution in our courses. We talk about the context and the pretext. We talk about the principles on which it's based, the religious ideas on which it's based, how those ideas became public policy, then the historical elements that led to the founding of America. And we try to give people an appreciation of there's an American way, which is a biblical way to think and act. And there's reasons and ways to understand when that's being diverted from and how to return to it. So theamericanview.com is how you can get materials, courses of instruction. As I say, we're working on courses of instruction in every state. If somebody in a state wants to help us with that, we have people all over the country. We have workshops going on where we're trying to develop state constitution courses. We have a U.S. Constitution course that's available online, and they're actually taught live. So please go. There's an interactive map you can go to on our website to find out where those courses are being given. And get yourself educated. Get the tools you need so that you can do your job as a citizen. The job of an elected official is to keep his oath. The job of the citizen is to make sure he does it.
Amen.
But he can't keep his oath unless he knows what the Constitution, and we can't keep it unless we know it, right?
It's
Exactly.
interesting.
So-
You said to think and act. And our government, I mean, I was thinking about the Depression and how people got out of the Depression. The government did help supply jobs, but people had to work to get money.
Right.
Now, our government isn't teaching us to think, and they're definitely not teaching us to act if they're sending us stimulus money every time we turn around. People don't want to work. They don't want to act.
Rewarding us.
They're $27 trillion in debt. Why would you listen to anything they say?
Boy, that's the truth. All right, Michael, thank you so much. We value your time. And boy, when you're educating the next generation, our current generations, that's everything. So we appreciate
Yes.
you, and we encourage all of our listeners to look you up and follow you. So thank
Sure.
you
And
again.
Dan, thank you so much for your hospitality, and thanks for the great conversation. I appreciate it very much. It's an honor to be with you.
God bless you, Mike.
Absolutely.
Thank
God
you very
bless.
much for everything.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
He gets me fired up every time I hear him.
I know, it's incredible. And we just don't we in the general sense don't take the time to understand this document. Why we even have this document. I'm holding the Constitution. It also has the Bill of Rights. The pocket Constitution is like 40 some pages long. It takes like an hour, hour and a half to read. It's not in difficult language to understand. And yet, we'll spend more time waiting in line at the Starbucks, in the course of a week than we will reading
I
our
got it.
founding
Give them to
documents.
people to read in line at Starbucks.
For reals. I'll
But
do
it,
it.
but it's really troublesome because everybody knows that we have the Constitution, and as if they see other people's rights being abused, they don't care. But when it comes to theirs, they care. But then it's too late.
Mhm.
We have to be aware. I mean, count how many politicians that don't follow our Constitution. Look at every law that's already on the books that doesn't follow the Constitution.
So here's the thing. So all the people out there that are, I don't know if everybody's familiar with this term now, but and I feel bad because we have one of our most dear friends that I love so much. Her name is Karen. But nowadays there's this phrase out there that, you're a Karen if you're,
But Karen's
kind of,
not a Karen.
oh no, our Karen is not a Karen. If you're overbearing, if you are butting into other people's business, if you're always wanting to talk to the manager, that kind of thing. We need all of that Karen-esque energy, right?
Karen-esque.
All the people that are, like shouting each other down about, wearing a mask or uh, or getting the vaccine. We need to channel all of that energy into browbeating each other. If you want to browbeat each other, like I am not super a fan at all of browbeating each other, right? Live and let live. That's what I'm about. But if you're going to browbeat someone, why don't you browbeat them into reading the Constitution
Hey, I got an idea.
or taking a Constitution class?
That's
I
cool.
mean,
I'm going to take this Constitution. I'm going to put it in my pocket. You know what? You know how when people don't wear a mask and other people see them and they start yelling and hitting them and stuff?
yeah.
I'm going to walk up to people and say, do you know what this is? And if they say no, I'm going to beat the crap out of them. Just beat the crap out of them. All right? And I'm going to beat this Constitution right into you.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Give me that. He did not just threaten bodily harm on the air. That didn't happen.
That
was
what?
a joke.
It was a
Yes?
joke. It was a joke, but you
Okay.
listen to that. I mean, you see that people are offended because you're not wearing a mask. Well, if you live in the United States of America and you don't believe in the Constitution, I'm offended.
Boy, that's the truth. But you know what? Even me having to say what I just said, that is a product of where we are right now, right? I mean, our former President Trump, got impeached because he used strong action language, right? And so now it's like I can't even say let's fight for the Constitution. Oh, wait a
No,
minute.
you can't
I
fight
didn't
for it.
mean the
No,
word
don't
fight
fist
as
fight for
in
Constitution.
fist. Yeah.
Persuade. No, you can't use that because that's illegal.
Who
No,
knows? It's crazy, but stop being so dang sensitive out there. And just read the
I can say
Constitution.
what
Just read
I
it.
said because it's the people that listen to us know the difference between a joke and frustration. It is frustrating.
Now, I don't know about that. I believe that we have people who tune in and listen because they want to argue with what our subject matter experts say. I think that they end up
Mm,
finding themselves caught up in it
they caught yeah,
and persuaded.
because
But I do believe we have some of those Karen-esque people out there that tune in because they would love to harm our message in some way. And
well
we
that
welcome everybody to listen. We welcome everybody to take these ideas and share them around their dinner
right.
tables. And
Right, and you think about the people that are really outspoken liberals that are attacking our government and stuff. They really don't have any backbone evidence to prove what they're saying. When they come over here to listen, first of all, those people, most of them don't listen. They have their little group and that's it. The ones that do happen to come over and listen start changing their ideas, and they become less speaking out there and start understanding.
It's
'cause-
hard to stand
right.
in the sunshine and not feel the warmth, right? And
Right.
get a little bit of a suntan, a little bit of a glow. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
So,
And let's
and I
have
think
debates.
that's what our
Yeah.
subject matter experts
Right.
offer.
Let's
to
have
our
debates. Don't come
listeners.
over and preach and tell me the way it is, but let's
Mhm.
talk.
Yeah.
Hey, I could be wrong about a couple things,
Mhm.
maybe,
Yeah.
but I am not wrong telling you that there are numerous politicians that don't follow the Constitution.
Heck
You
yeah.
prove me wrong.
Well, I think all of the politicians don't follow the Constitution and haven't read the Constitution. The elected
Representative.
officials who are public servants and actually acting as representatives of their constituents, they probably more so, that would be a great survey to put out there. They probably more so have read and understood and are honoring the Constitution. But we have got to move along today.
Yes, because we follow the rules, and the rules say we got to go, right? And that's what the rules say.
All right. Well, that's what the clock is telling us, at least. So, thank you again to Michael Peroutka. My head is actually buzzing with. There's a couple of other some friends of mine that of ours that have other podcasts that I'm like, he would be such a great guest on their podcast. I'm gonna start making connections as soon as we get off the air today. But he's the stuff that Michael and his organizations are teaching is vital.
Yeah.
Like it is like oxygen for our future. And so I encourage everybody to go check out theamericanview.com and also the Institute on the Constitution. And I'm very excited for him to post the Freedom Restoration Packet for citizens and law enforcement and sheriffs.
Freedom
and
Toolkit.
Freedom Toolkit. We are, I don't remember if I said this yet, but we are in the studio on Monday, May 10th of 2021. And so probably by the time this even gets posted, a week or so from now, that may be active. So don't delay. Check it out right away. And thank you to our amazing listeners. Whether you come here because you want to mentally argue with us or whether you want to be refreshed by what our guests are saying or learn from what our guests
Or
are
make
saying.
fun of me or whatever.
Or, yeah, there's that. We value your time,
Yes, we do.
honestly. And, really, if you are arguing, then you're engaging in critical thinking and you're engaging in, being actively, mindfully engaged in what we're saying. And that is awesome. Just
It
like Michael said, and we've said many times, don't take our word for what we're saying here. Use this as a launch pad for yourself to go gain knowledge about the things we're talking about. That's really where the
Yeah.
rubber meets the
And
road.
if you don't want to follow the Constitution, there's plenty of other countries you can go to.
That don't have our
Plenty.
Constitution.
Right. So you can not be free because you wouldn't.
Yeah,
The
you could be
Constitution makes you free.
to not be free.
Yeah, you'd be free not
You're
to
free
be
to
free.
not be free.
See, right now you can't be free not to be free. I don't understand that at all. But we're free here. We have a Constitution. You go somewhere else where you think you're free, but you're not free because you don't have a Constitution that makes you free. So it's like Cheryl. We got a free
You're
trip.
putting all that on me.
We got a free trip to go to Texas next month, and it's only going to cost.
You know,
Only going to cost. It's free.
no,
but it's
not
only gonna
Texas.
cost.
That's how Vegas works,
Okay.
right? Free food, free rooms. Oh, it's not free, baby. You gotta pay when you get
We're
there.
not told what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
That's true.
That's
true.
why I said Texas, Cheryl.
Okay, I got you. All right. Well, we have got to get on out of here. Thank you again to Michael Peroutka. Thank you to our listeners. And until next time, what are we going to
Pray for our nation and our Constitution.
Absolutely. Pray for our leaders, our representatives, even the ones you don't like.
Especially the ones you don't like.
All right. Until next time, be good to each other. Have a great week.
God bless. Bye-bye.